The starship Solara drifted silently through the darkness of deep space, her silver hull glinting under distant starlight. Inside, corridors hummed softly as hundreds of crew members from different species worked in harmony. Among them was a human engineer named Rian, quiet and hardworking, who preferred to keep his head down and his tools busy. He was not famous, not strong, and not gifted with any special power. Yet he had something rare: patience, calmness, and the ability to stay focused even when chaos surrounded him. Rian had joined the Galactic fleet 2 years earlier. Humans were still new to the Alliance, known more for their curiosity than their technology. Many alien officers saw humans as fragile but useful. Rian didn't argue with that view. He only wanted to learn. He spent his time in the lower decks, repairing conduits, recalibrating systems, and quietly observing how the great ship worked. The Solara was a wonder built with Alari precision, the Lexi energy cores, and human adaptability software. It was a symbol of unity, though not everyone believed in that idea completely. Captain Tira, an Alari commander, led the Solara. The Alari were tall, graceful beings with silver eyes that reflected light like polished glass. They valued order, logic, and loyalty above all. To them, emotions were a weakness, and efficiency was a form of beauty. Tira ruled her ship with calm authority. Her voice was never loud, yet her words carried weight. She had led fleets through asteroid fields, rescued colonies, and negotiated peace treaties. Her crew respected her deeply, even feared disappointing her dot to Rian. She seemed untouchable, a living symbol of perfection. He admired her from a distance, watching how she managed the ship without a single misstep. He never thought she even knew his name. That changed one day when the Solara entered the Epsilon Drift, an unexplored sector near a collapsed star. The region was filled with strange magnetic storms and unpredictable energy fields. The mission was supposed to be simple: map the area, collect samples, and move on. But the universe, as always, had other plans. Rian was in the engineering bay when the alarms began to sound. Lights flickered. Console sparked. The steady hum of the ship turned into a low growl as the main power grid began to overload. Crew members shouted over the noise, trying to keep the system stable. The navigation officer reported that their shields were losing power fast. Captain Tira's calm voice came through the comm. Engineering status report. The chief engineer of Alexi named Joro responded in a tense tone. Unknown energy interference, Captain. It's disrupting the plasma conduits. We can't balance the flow. Tira replied, stabilize it or the entire drive core will collapse. Joro barked orders, and everyone scrambled to obey. Rian stayed near the auxiliary console, monitoring energy readings. He noticed something strange. The energy wasn't random. It pulsed in a pattern, almost rhythmic. The systems were trying to compensate, but the automated balance was making things worse, feeding the surge instead of calming it. He hesitated for a moment. Speaking out of turn was risky, but if he stayed silent, the ship might not survive. He took a deep breath. Sir, may I suggest rerouting the flow through the secondary containment matrix instead of the core stabilizer? Joro frowned. That's not standard procedure. I know, sir, Rian replied steadily, but the secondary matrix isn't connected to the pulse interference. It could bypass the resonance effect. There was a long pause. Then the lights dimmed further, and another alarm went off. They were out of time. Joro clenched his teeth. Do it. Rian's fingers moved quickly over the console. Sparks flew from an open panel, but he didn't stop. His calm focus spread to the others around him. The plasma flow shifted, and the main core temperature began to drop. The energy pulse faded slowly, like a storm calming after thunder. Within minutes, the ship returned to normal power levels. In the command bridge, Captain Tira watched the readings return to green. The danger had passed. She exhaled quietly, a rare sign of relief. "Good work, engineering," she said over the intercom. Later, when the captain came down to the engineering deck for inspection, the crew straightened immediately. She walked through the rows of stations with perfect posture, her silver eyes scanning every display. When she reached Rian's console, she stopped. "You are the human engineer who redirected the flow," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Captain," Rian replied, standing a little straighter. "Rian, systems technician, second shift." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment. "You acted outside protocol." "Yes, Captain," he said again. "I believed it was the only way." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. "And you were correct. You saved the ship." Rian blinked, unsure how to respond. "I was only doing my duty." "That is the duty done well," she said, and gave a short nod before walking away. For Rian, that small gesture felt like the greatest reward in the galaxy. Over the next few days, Rian's name spread quietly through the crew. Some called him the calm human. Others teased that he had somehow impressed the unshakable Captain Tira. He didn't care about the attention. He returned to his duties, preferring the company of humming machines to curious stares. Still, he couldn't forget that moment, the captain's calm acknowledgement, her steady gaze. It wasn't admiration or friendship, but respect. And respect from an Ilari captain meant more than praise from any human officer. Tira, on her part, found herself thinking about the human more than she expected. She reviewed the incident report and noticed how precisely Rian had acted under pressure. There was no panic in his voice, no hesitation in his decision. The Ilari valued logic, but even logic could not explain such instinct. Humans, she realized, were not as predictable as the Council often claimed. She observed him from afar during routine shifts. He was always early, never complained, and handled complex systems as if he could feel the ship's rhythm through his hands. He rarely spoke unless necessary, but his suggestions were often practical and effective. Tira respected efficiency, and Rian embodied it in a quiet human way. One evening, the captain was in the observation deck, reviewing reports. The stars outside shimmered like frozen fire. Rian entered silently to repair a faulty panel. When he saw her, he almost turned back, not wanting to disturb her. But she looked up and said, "Continue your work." He nodded, opened the panel, and began adjusting the circuits. The silence between them was peaceful, not awkward. Finally, Tira spoke. "Tell me, Technician Rian, why did you choose to serve on a multi-species vessel instead of staying with your own kind?" Rian paused for a moment, then replied, "Because there's more to learn out here. Each world builds differently. Each species thinks differently. I want to understand how it all fits together." "A curious reason," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Curiosity is something humans can't turn off." Tira looked at him for a long moment, then returned her gaze to the stars. "Perhaps that is your species' strength." The conversation ended there, but it stayed in both their minds. For Rian, it was a small but meaningful exchange, a moment of connection between two very different beings. For Tira, it was a reminder that even the smallest voice could bring unexpected wisdom. Days turned into weeks, and the Solara continued her journey across the frontier. Rian repaired engines, calibrated shields, and improved systems quietly. He never sought recognition, but small changes he made began improving efficiency all over the ship. When the crew ate in the mess hall, some nodded to him in respect. He didn't realize it, but his calm presence had started to influence others. When tensions rose, his steady nature reminded them that fear solved nothing. When systems failed, his hands moved with quiet confidence. Even Tira began to rely on his insights, asking for reports directly from him rather than through officers. To Rian, she was still his superior, distant, disciplined, and unreachable. But fate, as silent as space itself, had already begun weaving something between them. Something neither of them could yet understand. For now, Rian was content to remain the silent engineer, the human who worked in the shadows of the great ship. He didn't know that his calm actions had set in motion events that would soon change his life and the laws of the galaxy forever. Weeks passed after the energy field crisis, and the starship Solara returned to its calm routine. The crew resumed their surveys, collecting data from distant systems. For Rian, life returned to quiet work and long hours in the engineering bay. He never sought attention, though some crew members still whispered about the human who saved the ship. Rian preferred not to think about it. He wanted to stay focused on learning. One morning, the ship received a new assignment from the Galactic Research Division. A set of strange signals had been detected from a dead red dwarf system, known as Varnes 9. The readings showed traces of ancient technology, possibly pre-galactic civilization, older than any known race. The Fleet Command wanted Solara to investigate and secure the site before others arrived. Captain Tira studied the report in our quarters. The signals came from drifting ruins orbiting the dead star, remnants of structures made of unknown material. The patterns were rhythmic, like coded transmissions. She found them fascinating, though also unsettling. Old things in deep space often carried secrets better left undisturbed. Still, the mission had been approved. At the morning briefing, Tira addressed the crew. Her voice was calm and firm as always. "We are entering the Varnes 9 system in 6 hours. Scans indicate artificial structures among the asteroid belt. Teams will be assigned to exploration units. Maintain full precautions. We do not know what built those ruins or why they still transmit." After the briefing, her eyes fell briefly on Rian standing near the back. He was quiet, holding his data tablet. Something about his calm composure and danger had stayed in her memory. When officers asked who should assist with field repairs and system diagnostics on the surface team, she made a quick decision. "Technician Rian will accompany the first team," she said. The room went silent for a moment. Even Rian looked surprised. He had never been part of a surface mission before, especially not one under the captain's direct command. Tira continued, "His understanding of adaptive systems may be useful if the ruins interfere with our instruments." "Yes, Captain," Rian said, trying not to show his nervousness. The journey to Varnes 9 took a few hours at high warp. When the Solara dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the sight before him was breathtaking and eerie. The red dwarf glowed dimly, its light fading like a dying ember. Around it drifted colossal fragments of what once might have been a station or a city, shattered and silent. Metal shards floated lazily among rocks, reflecting crimson light. The bridge fell quiet. Even seasoned officers felt a chill. "Scan everything," Tira ordered. The science officer replied. "Energy readings are faint but structured. Something in the ruins is still active. It's broadcasting a pattern, Captain." Tira frowned. "What kind of pattern?" "Mathematical sequence. Prime numbers. It repeats every 27 seconds. Prime numbers. Universal language for intelligence. Someone or something had left a message here." After confirming the area was safe for a landing, Tira led the first expedition team in a shuttle. Rian sat behind her, checking diagnostic screens nervously. The shuttle descended through the field of drifting debris, weaving between chunks of metal and stone until it landed on a large, flat platform that once might have been a courtyard. The ruins were massive. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the cracked walls, as if reacting to their presence. The air shimmered with low radiation, harmless but unusual. The crew began to spread out, scanning surfaces and taking samples. Rian knelt near a half-buried console, brushing dust away with careful hands. The symbols pulsed gently under his touch, as though recognizing something in him. He frowned, Captain, these markings respond to contact. It's not random energy. Tira approached, studying the glow. What do you think it is? I don't know, Rian said honestly. But it feels like it's reading us. The scientist nearby adjusted his scanner. Energy output is increasing slightly in your proximity, technician. It seems to favor human biometrics. That made Tira turn sharply. Only human? Yes, Captain. Rian took a step back, uneasy. Maybe I should stop touching it. Before he could finish, the ground beneath them began to hum. The air thickened with static energy, and bright lines of light spread across the floor, forming circles and patterns around Rian and Tira. The symbols glowed brighter and brighter, until the entire chamber was filled with golden light. The team shouted and tried to retreat, but an invisible force kept them back. Rian felt a strange warmth around him, as if the air itself had recognized his presence. The same light wrapped around Tira, linking them together with a shimmering strand like a thread of energy. A deep, ancient voice echoed through the chamber, not in sound, but directly in their minds. It spoke in every known language at once, its meaning unmistakable. Bond recognized. Law of union invoked. The pair is sealed. And then, as suddenly as it began, the light vanished. The air was still again. The ruins went silent. Rian stumbled, blinking spots from his eyes. Tira stood motionless, her silver gaze locked on him. The crew rushed forward, checking for injuries. Both appeared unharmed, but every scanner showed the same strange result, a shared energy signature linking Rian and Tira. Captain, the medic said carefully, your vital readings are synchronized with the technicians. It's impossible, but it's there. Back on the Solara, the medical and legal teams examined the data for hours. The ship's legal AI, an old system that contained every regulation of galactic law, was brought online to review the readings. When the results appeared on the screen, silence filled the command room. According to Galactic Law Section 982B, Subdivision Bond of Succession, the AI intoned in its calm mechanical voice. A recognized pair by ancient artifact activation constitutes a lawful union under interspecies bond recognition. Tira frowned. Clarify. In simpler terms, the AI said, you and technician Rian are, by activation of ancient law, considered life partners. The law is binding and recognized by all member species. Rian blinked in disbelief. Wait, partners? As in, the AI continued, as in permanent. The bond is irreversible without council intervention. Emotional or social interpretation is secondary. The connection is classified as sacred law by the founders. The room went utterly still. Officers exchanged stunned looks. Tira stood perfectly motionless, though inside she felt a storm of confusion. This must be a malfunction, she said. I will not accept. Captain, the AI interrupted. The records match perfectly. You are bonded under galactic law. Rian rubbed his forehead. I didn't mean for this to happen. Tira turned sharply toward him, her tone crisp but not angry. No one said you did, technician. The crew didn't know whether to laugh, panic, or salute. The situation was beyond strange, an alien captain and a human technician, suddenly tied together by an ancient law no one fully understood. Over the next few days, the ship buzzed with quiet gossip. Some found it amusing. Others found it fascinating. Rian wished he could hide in the cargo bay forever. He avoided the captain as much as possible, but the bond made that difficult. Every time he tried to work alone, he could somehow feel her presence at the edge of his thoughts, a faint awareness. Like knowing someone was nearby, even when they weren't. Tira experienced the same strange effect. She could sense Rian's emotions faintly, his calmness, his anxiety, even his curiosity. It unsettled her deeply. The Alari valued control, Yet this bond ignored all her discipline. She called Rian to her private office one evening. The lights were low, and the stars outside drifted silently. Rian entered nervously, standing at attention. "Captain," he said quietly. Tira gestured for him to relax. "We need to discuss the situation." He nodded. "Yes, Captain." "There is no easy explanation," she began. "The bond cannot be broken by any known method. The Council will demand a hearing. Until then, we will maintain professional conduct. Do you understand?" "Yes, Captain," he replied. "But do you feel it too? That connection?" She hesitated, her calm expression breaking slightly. "Yes," she admitted softly. "It is distracting." "I'm sorry," Rian said quickly. "I never wanted this." Tira studied him for a long moment. "Nor did I, but perhaps this bond was not an accident. The ruins recognized something. Maybe it chose. Rian asked. She nodded slowly. "The words we heard, bond of succession. It sounds ritualistic, deliberate. Maybe it's a design left by a civilization older than all of us." Rian thought about that. "Then, maybe it's trying to tell us something." Tira looked out at the stars. "Perhaps. For now, we obey the law. But understand this. Technician Rian, this bond will not change your duties or my command. Do not let it affect your focus." "Yes, Captain," he said. When he left her office, Tira stayed by the window, staring into the endless dark. The bond pulsed faintly within her mind, a soft thread connecting her to a human she barely knew. She had faced battles, storms, and impossible missions, but this was different. This was personal, and somewhere deep inside, though she would never admit it aloud, part of her wondered what destiny had just been written for them both. Days turned into weeks after the strange incident in the ruins of Varnes 9. The Solara continued its mission, but things were no longer the same. Everyone on board knew about the bond. The story had spread through the crew faster than light itself. A human engineer and an Alari captain linked by ancient law. It sounded like something from a legend, yet it was real, confirmed by the ship's AI and the Galactic Council's temporary notice. For Rian, every day now felt heavier. The bond was invisible, but he could feel it. Sometimes, when he was fixing a conduit or walking through the halls, he would suddenly sense a calm presence nearby, like a soft echo in his thoughts. If Tira was angry or stressed, he could feel a faint wave of tension too. It wasn't strong, but it was always there. He tried to ignore it, focusing on work, but it made simple tasks strange and awkward. He avoided the command deck whenever possible. When the captain entered a room, he could sense it before he even saw her. His heart would quicken slightly, though he didn't know why. It wasn't attraction. It was simply connection, something unnatural that tied them together. For Tira, the situation was worse in a different way. As captain, she had to appear calm, in control, and above all, logical. But now, she found her thoughts distracted at unexpected moments. During a meeting, she would suddenly feel worry not her own, but Rian's. During rest hours, she sometimes dreamed scenes that weren't hers. Metal corridors, dim light, the sound of a wrench turning. She would wake with confusion, realizing they were glimpses of Rian's routine through the link. The Alari were not used to such emotional interference. It disturbed her balance. She began spending long hours in her private quarters, meditating to control her mind, trying to suppress the strange connection. Yet, no matter how deep she focused, the thread between them remained. One evening, Rian was working in the lower engineering bay when the lights flickered. A loud crack sounded as a plasma conduit burst open, releasing a surge of blue energy. Rian quickly shut off the safety valve, but the system refused to respond. Sparks flew, filling the room with smoke. Without thinking, Rian grabbed a manual override rod and forced the panel open. The heat was intense, burning through his gloves, but he didn't stop. Within seconds, the power stabilized again, and the lights returned to normal. He sighed in relief, but before he could speak, his cum buzzed. Captain Tira's voice came through sharply. "Rian, what happened?" "I felt—" She paused, catching herself. Sensors detected a power fluctuation." Rian hesitated, realizing what she had almost said. "It's all right, Captain. Just a conduit overload. I handled it." There was silence for a moment. Then Tira said quietly, "Report to medical. Your hands are burned." Rian looked down. The gloves were scorched, and his skin was red, but he shrugged. "I'm fine, Captain." "That is not an answer," she said firmly. "Medical now?" When he arrived, Tira was already there, standing beside the medic. She gave him a brief, unreadable look. The medic treated his hands quickly, applying a cool gel that shimmered with nanobots. As the pain faded, Rian noticed Tira watching him. Her silver eyes softened for a moment. "You risked injury," she said. "That was unnecessary." Rian smiled faintly. "If I didn't act fast, the conduit could have taken out half the power grid. You humans always think speed is better than caution," she said quietly. "Sometimes." "Captain, it's both," he replied gently. For a second, the corners of her mouth lifted, the closest thing to a smile anyone had ever seen from her. "Perhaps," she said, and turned to leave. But as she did, Rian suddenly felt something inside him tighten, like the bond pulsing stronger. Tira froze mid-step. She felt it too. Neither spoke. The connection hummed softly between them, like a quiet heartbeat shared across the air. Then she left without another word. Later that night, Rian sat alone in the observation bay, staring at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of light and silence. He wondered what the ancient builders had intended when they created the bond law. Was it a test? A symbol? Or something else entirely? Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned and saw Captain Tira approaching. She stood beside him, her eyes reflecting starlight. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, she said, "You are troubled." Rian chuckled softly. "I think we both are." She nodded slightly. "This connection, it interferes with my focus. I feel emotions that are not mine, thoughts that don't belong to me. It is uncomfortable." "I know," Rian said. "I feel the same. It's like having a second voice that never goes silent." Tira crossed her arms, looking out at the void. "I have tried to suppress it, but it resists control." Rian hesitated. "Maybe we shouldn't fight it." She turned to him sharply. "Explain." He chose his words carefully. "Maybe it's not something we can remove. Maybe we should learn how to live with it instead. We don't know what the ancient builders wanted, but maybe the bond means cooperation, not control." Tira looked thoughtful. "Alari history warns against attachments. Emotion clouds judgment." "Maybe," Rian said, "but emotion also reminds us what we protect. If we were just machines, we wouldn't care what happens to anyone." Tira studied him silently for a long moment. There was no argument in her eyes this time, only curiosity. And something softer, almost respect. Finally, she said, "You speak with reason, Rian. Perhaps there is balance between logic and emotion." He smiled. "Maybe that's what they wanted us to learn." They stood quietly together for a while, watching a distant comet pass by, its trail glowing like a silver ribbon across the stars. In the following days, something subtle began to change. The crew noticed it first. The captain and the human engineer seemed to move in perfect sync. When Tira issued orders during drills, Rian already knew what adjustments would be needed. When systems glitched, he reacted almost before she gave the command. It was as if they shared an unspoken understanding. Then came the plasma storm. The Solar was traveling near a binary star system when a sudden wave of charged energy hit them. Shields flared and flickered. The science officer shouted, "Energy surge incoming. Too fast to dodge." Tira stood firm. "All stations, race for impact. Divert auxiliary power to the shields." Rian, in engineering, felt the surge before the sensors even registered it. His mind filled with pressure, like thunder building in the distance. Without knowing why, he shouted through the comm, "Captain, starboard side reinforce section 12. It's going to fail." Tira reacted instantly. "Do it." The crew redirected energy, just as a massive wave struck the ship. The shields rippled, but held. The storm raged for several minutes before fading away. When the readings stabilized, Tira sat back slowly, heart pounding. How had Rian known where the failure would occur before it happened? Later, in her quarters, she reviewed the event. The ship's log confirmed Rian's prediction. Came 3 seconds before the sensors detected the surge. 3 seconds, enough time to save hundreds of lives. She called him to the bridge the next day. "You sensed it before the computers," she said. "How?" Rian looked uncertain. "I don't know. I just felt danger. The bond pulsed suddenly, and I knew where it would hit." She studied him carefully. "So the connection is more than emotion. It transfers awareness." "Maybe," he said softly. "Maybe it connects instincts, not just thought." Tira stood in silence, then said, "You may have saved us again, Rian." He gave a small nod. "We both did, Captain. Together." As the days passed, their cooperation became almost natural. The crew, once uneasy about the bond, began to see it as a strength. They whispered that maybe this strange link was no accident, that perhaps fate or destiny had chosen the two for something greater. Rian didn't believe in destiny, but he couldn't deny that the bond had changed everything. He felt more connected to the ship, to the mission, even to the captain herself. Though they barely spoke outside duty, there was now mutual respect, an unspoken understanding between them. Tira, meanwhile, had begun to rethink her beliefs. She had always trusted in discipline and logic, but now she saw how Rian's quiet courage and human intuition filled the gaps logic couldn't reach. He acted from heart, not calculation, and somehow it worked. Late one night, she recorded a private log. "The bond remains. It grows stronger. I sense his thoughts sometimes, and they are steady, kind. I do not understand how such simplicity brings balance to complexity. Perhaps the ancient law saw this before we did." She paused, then looked out the window at the stars. "Whatever this connection means, I must accept it. The law may have chosen us, but perhaps it chose wisely." Unaware of her words, Rian worked quietly in the engineering bay, feeling the same faint warmth in his mind, the steady pulse of a bond that neither of them had wanted. Yet both had begun to understand. Somewhere deep inside, even without knowing why, he smiled. The unwanted bond was no longer something to fear. It was becoming something far greater, a bridge between two worlds, and perhaps the first step towards something the galaxy had never seen before. The ship's starage floated silently through the calm lanes of Galactic Sector 12. After the incident with the Council, peace finally returned to the crew. However, inside, Ryan still struggled to understand what his new bond with Commander Lyra truly meant. To him, she had always been a leader, someone untouchable, someone above him. But now the galaxy itself had declared them bound by law, and neither of them could undo it. For days, he avoided the topic. He buried himself in work, running diagnostics, cleaning drone bays, and checking navigation data. But every time he passed Lyra in the corridor, he could feel her eyes following him, not cold like before, but curious and gentle. It confused him more than any alien code or galactic treaty. That morning, the ship entered orbit around a small desert planet named Rollin 3. They were there to deliver supplies to a science outpost studying rare energy crystals. Rand stood on the bridge beside the navigation screen when Lyra entered. The soft hum of the engines filled the silence between them. "Lieutenant," she said softly, "prepare the transport shuttle? We're going down together." He turned in surprise. "Together, Commander?" Her eyes met his. "Yes, you and I will handle this mission. It's time the outpost learns the delivery isn't delayed by politics." Ryan nodded, still unsure why she wanted him there. But he didn't question it. Orders were orders. When the shuttle descended through Rollin's thin clouds, the view was breathtaking. Golden dunes stretched endlessly, broken by black rock formations that shimmered faintly. Lyra sat in the pilot's seat, calm and focused, while Ryan watched the sensors. "This planet has unusual energy signatures," he said. "Almost like they're pulsing." "They are," she replied. "That's why the scientists came here. But those readings, they match something else." Ryan looked at her. "Something else?" She gave a faint smile. "Human life force patterns." Ryan froze. "That's impossible. We're the only humans in this sector." "Perhaps not anymore," she said quietly. The shuttle landed near a cluster of metal domes. As the hatch opened, a wave of warm wind brushed against them. Sand glittered like molten glass under the twin suns. A team of scientists approached, waving. A tall woman in a white uniform greeted them. "Commander Lyra, welcome. We've been expecting you." Lyra nodded. "Dr. Sellen, how are the crystals performing?" "Unstable," the scientist replied. "But that's not all. 2 nights ago, we detected a signal, one that matches Terran frequency." Ryan's eyes widened. "A human signal?" Dr. Sellen nodded. "Yes, it came from beneath the dunes near the old mining zone." Lyra looked at Ryan. "Then that's where we're going." They took a crawler vehicle into the desert. The heat shimmered over the sand like a living thing. Hours passed as they searched for the source. Finally, the scanner beeped sharply. "Signal's close," Ryan said. "Less than 50 meters below." They stepped out, brushing sand off their boots. Lyra knelt and placed her gloved hand on the ground. "There's something ancient here," she murmured before Ryan could respond. The sand around them trembled. A metal hatch rose from beneath the surface, grinding against buried rock. Dust billowed into the air as a faint blue light leaked from the opening. Ryan gripped his scanner. "This wasn't on any map." Lyra smiled faintly. "That's because it wasn't meant to be found." They entered carefully. The corridor below was silent and lined with faded Terran markings, letters, and symbols from Earth's old exploration fleets. Inside, old consoles flickered weakly, running on some unknown power source. A holographic display activated as they stepped forward. "Human crew detected," said a mechanical voice. "Identity incomplete. Awaiting recognition." Lyra looked at Ryan, her expression serious. "This is pre-galactic Union technology." He stepped closer to the terminal and touched it. "Ryan, engineer. Terran descent." The system blinked. "Match confirmed. Access granted." The walls lit up with blue light, revealing murals of ancient human explorers, ships, and planets labeled colonies lost to time. Lyra stared in awe. "Ryan, this place. It's one of the first human outposts beyond Sol." He nodded slowly. "It's proof we were here before anyone thought possible." Then a voice echoed from deeper inside the structure, a gentle, synthetic voice. "You came back." They followed the sound into a chamber where a glowing sphere hovered above a broken pedestal. It pulsed like a heart. "I am Archive 9, it said. "I have waited for Terran return for 1,000 years. Ryan swallowed. Archive. Why are you active? I was built to remember, it said softly, and to awaken the chosen pair who would continue the legacy. Lyra frowned. Chosen pair? The sphere pulsed brighter. A commander and an engineer, bound by duty and unity, by human instinct and galactic law. Ryan and Lyra exchanged a look. His heart pounded. That can't be a coincidence. Archive 9 replied, It is no coincidence. The bond between you ensures humanity's survival in this quadrant. Lyra stepped closer. You're saying this bond, our connection, was part of some old human design? Yes, the sphere replied. The galactic law that binds pairs of compatible command and engineering genes was written by humans first, long before other species copied it. Ryan felt lightheaded. So, humans created the law? Lyra's voice was quiet, and the galaxy just forgot. They left the chamber with new understanding. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the dunes. As they reached the crawler, Lyra stopped and looked at Ryan. You understand now, she said. This isn't just some strange accident or tradition. The galaxy didn't choose us, our own ancestors did. Ryan looked at the sky. Then everything we faced, every challenge, every judgment, it all led us here. She nodded. Because humanity built its laws on unity. We fight better together. He smiled faintly. So, I guess you really are stuck with me. Her lips curved slightly. Perhaps. But I've had worse assignments. They both laughed softly, the tension easing for the first time in days. But as they loaded the last crate into the crawler, Ryan noticed something in the distance, small dots on the horizon, moving fast. Commander, he said, we've got company. Lyra raised her visor and scanned the horizon. Pirate drones. Not local. Ryan checked the readings. They're tracking our energy trail. Lyra's calm voice returned. Then let's make this interesting. She took the pilot's seat, and Ryan manned the crawler's defense console. The hum of approaching drones grew louder. Plasma trails lit up the evening sky as the machines closed in. But this time, Ryan wasn't nervous. He felt something new, confidence, not from training, but from trust. As the first drone fired, Lyra spun the crawler sharply, sand exploding behind them. Ryan aimed and returned fire. The drones fell one by one, glowing wrecks tumbling into the dunes. Every move they made seemed perfectly synchronized, as if they shared the same thought. When the last drone crashed, silence returned. The suns dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky painted with purple light. Ryan looked at Lyra and said softly, I think I finally understand what this bond means. Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Then you're ready for what comes next. He nodded. And what's that? She looked toward the stars, telling the galaxy the truth, that humans wrote the first law. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if listening. Humanity's forgotten legacy had awakened, and the pair who carried it now stood together, not by chance, but by purpose. And far above, deep within the silent starage, the ship's eye flickered to life and whispered softly through the comms. Welcome back, Terrans. The next chapter of human history was about to begin. The starage hovered in silent orbit over Rollin 3, its lights glowing faintly against the black of space. Ryan and Lyra had returned from the desert with the ancient Terran data core, proof that humanity's hand had shaped the galactic law, long before the Council claimed it as their own. The discovery was enough to shake the balance of power across multiple star systems. Inside the command deck, Lyra stood beside the main console, her eyes on the holographic projection of the archive's data. Ryan worked at the terminal beside her, decoding old Terran code lines that shimmered like blue fire across the screen. He looked tired but focused. These files, he said quietly, They're encrypted in a human pattern I've never seen before. Lyra glanced at him. Can you unlock them? I think so, he replied, tapping a few keys. But there's something strange. The code has recognition markers. It's scanning for us. Lyra frowned. For us? Before he could answer, the ship's eye spoke in its calm voice. Commander, Lieutenant, Archive 9 requests transmission link. Priority Alpha. Lyra nodded. Open the channel. A soft light appeared above the console, forming the glowing shape of Archive 9. Its calm voice filled the room. Terran commanders, the encryption you carry is the Legacy Directive. It must be delivered to the Galactic Council to restore human authorship of the law. Ryan leaned forward. But the Council might destroy it before anyone hears us. Archive 9's light pulsed. That is why you must act now. The directive contains human genetic keys tied to your bond. Only you two can activate it. Lyra's expression hardened. Then we're not just witnesses, we're proof. The Archive's voice softened. Yes, humanity once united through bonds of trust. You are the last living example of that design. Complete the mission, and you will remind the galaxy what humans truly stand for. Then the light faded. Moments later, the ship's alert systems came alive. A warning flashed across the screen. Incoming vessels. Galactic Enforcement Fleet. The Council had already learned of their discovery. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They're here to stop us. Ryan quickly checked the readings. 3 cruisers, 1 command ship. And not giving us much time. Lyra turned to the crew. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. All power to shields. The bridge crew moved quickly, but Ryan could feel tension rising. The Starich was fast, but not built for combat against full Council warships. Still, retreat wasn't an option. The truth needed to reach the central network, and fast. Ryan said, Commander, if we boost our communication array and reroute power through the auxiliary relays, I can send the directive across secure human frequencies. Lyra looked at him. It will expose us. I know, he said, but it'll reach every colony, every ship, every human. She nodded slowly. Do it. The ship trembled as the first Council cruiser fired. Plasma bolts streaked past, shaking the hull. Lights flickered, alarms echoed, but the crew held their ground. Ryan ran across the deck, sparks flying from overloaded panels. I need more power to the signal emitter. Diverting now, Lyra replied, her hands steady on the controls. She moved with calm precision, guiding the Starich through the chaos. Her voice over the intercom was clear, confident. Crew, this is Commander Lyra. We hold our course. We carry the truth, and the truth will not burn. Her words sparked something inside the crew. Fear turned into focus. Every station came alive with determination. Ryan looked up from his console. Signal ready. Uploading the directive. As he activated the uplink, blue light filled the deck. The archive symbol appeared again, spreading outward like a ripple across the communication lines. Data flowed faster than any standard channel could handle. Terran code, ancient and powerful, racing through the stars. But the enemy wasn't idle. Another hit rocked the Starich. Panels burst in showers of sparks. Ryan stumbled, gripping the console. Shields down to 40%. Lyra clenched her jaw. Hold steady. We're almost there. Ryan's screen flashed red. Commander, they're locking weapons for a direct strike. Divert auxiliary power to forward deflectors. She commanded. I can't. It'll overload the engines. She looked at him firmly. Then trust me. He hesitated only a second before obeying. The engines roared, and the ship surged forward. The enemy's next volley struck the shields, but instead of collapsing, the energy burst outward, reflecting the blast back toward the attackers. Two enemy cruisers spun out of formation. Ryan stared. "You turned our shield matrix into a mirror." Lyra smiled faintly. "Adaptation is a human habit." But the third cruiser pressed on, locking their transmission path. The directive upload was still only 70% complete. "They're jamming the signal," Ryan said. Lyra's voice stayed calm. "Then we go through them." She turned to him. "Ryan, remember what Archive said. Only we can activate it." He nodded, realizing what she meant. "You're thinking of linking the ship's core to us." "Yes," she said. "Our bond will synchronize the transmission. But once we do it, the ship's systems will burn out. There'll be no going back." He met her gaze. "Then we finish this together." They stood side by side at the central console. Lyra placed her hand on the core interface. Ryan did the same. A soft glow surrounded them as the ship recognized their genetic signatures. The Starich Azora spoke. "Bond synchronization confirmed. Directive activation in progress." Light spread through the deck like sunrise. Ryan felt warmth flowing through him, not just energy, but memory. He saw flashes of ancient Terran explorers building the first stargates, drafting the early galactic treaties, shaping the laws of cooperation. Humanity had led not through power, but through unity. And in that moment, he understood why the galaxy had chosen to forget, because remembering meant admitting that humans once taught peace. The final surge of energy erupted from the ship's core, spreading across the network in a storm of light. Every human ship and colony across the stars received the message, the directive of origin. And in it, the truth. Humanity wrote the first galactic law. The Council fleet tried to cut the transmission, but it was too late. The truth was free. As the light faded, the ship went silent. Systems dimmed, power levels dropped, and the engines slowed to idle. Smoke drifted through the air. Ryan looked around. The crew was safe, but exhausted. He turned to Lyra, who stood beside him, her expression calm and proud. "It worked," he said softly. She nodded. "The galaxy knows now." Outside the viewport, the Council fleet stopped their attack. The cruisers drifted quietly, no longer firing. Then, one by one, they powered down their weapons, a silent acknowledgement of the truth that could no longer be denied. Ryan looked out at the stars. "Do you think they'll let us go?" Lyra's voice was steady. "Maybe not, but they can't erase what we've done." The IS faint voice returned, weak but clear. "Directive completed. Humanity's record restored." Ryan smiled faintly. "Good work, old friend." Hours later, they received a message. The Galactic Council requested an immediate hearing, not to punish, but to discuss the reactivation of the human charter. For the first time in centuries, humans were being called not as servants or members, but as founders. The ship limped toward the nearest space gate. The damage was heavy, but their spirits were light. On the observation deck, Ryan stood beside Lyra, watching the stars slip past. "You know," he said, "when I joined this ship, I thought you barely noticed me." Lyra smiled. "I noticed. You were the only one who never looked afraid of me." He laughed softly. "That's because I didn't know I was supposed to be." She turned to face him. "You were never supposed to be. The law was made for equals." They stood quietly, the silence comfortable now. No ranks, no orders, just two people connected by fate and by the legacy of their species. Ryan looked out at the stars. "So what now?" Lyra's eyes reflected the light of distant worlds. "Now, we remind them what humans can do, together." The Starich entered the gate, its engines flaring one last time. As it disappeared into the glowing stream of light, a voice from the archive echoed through the stars. "Humanity endures not through power, but through unity. Let this be remembered. And in the vastness of space, where countless civilizations watched the transmission of the directive replay across every channel. One truth became clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once again, because even in the endless night of the stars, humans still found a way to shine.